Here's a little interesting thing. I was looking on Google and or YouTube and found a bunch of electrically derusting videos. Here's an old hose clamp that I just put a bar in here and throw it on, and it's taking this C-clamp really nice, cleaning it up. Did a lot of pieces. I just now stuck in this piece of Falcon pot metal trim just for curiosity to see what it'll do, and it just derusts stuff really well. And I had this bumper here, and it was you can kind of tell from the beat marks here, it was really bent up bad, rusted. So I made a bigger one, and here's one. This is just a garbage can. Mix washing soda into it, hook it up to a battery charger. You can see the white foam on this one. This is just an old rusty bar, a U-bolt I put in here. And it's working really good, and I've got another big piece of iron in there right now. I've just got it in with a stainless wire here and a battery clamp, and you can see that rusty looking stuff, and looks really nasty, but really all it is just rust. I don't know if you can tell under there, but this water is clean. It's just this rust on top, and all I do is just rake it out, throw it into a thing. The more rust you have in it, the more comes off of it. But I just come in here once in a while and throw the rust out, and then I'll let it set to the bottom of that, and then dump it out. Because either I grind it all off and it goes everywhere, or I put it in a nice container and drain clean water off of it, which is just soapy water, and then dispose of the rust itself in a trash container. Works really good. For example, here's some parts. This was an old battery bracket. It was acid and stuff. It ate completely through it. I put this in there a few hours, and if you can see that black section in there, that's what it ate it down to. It was just really terrible. There's an old 55 Hemi idler. It was just caked with rust. Wouldn't even turn. And now it rotates good. Piece of a bumper bracket. You can kind of see under that clip how bad the rust was. And it's just taking it right down to almost bare metal. Yeah, here's an old rusty channel. It was terrible. You can kind of see a little bit there on the end. And I threw it in there for a couple hours. It took nearly all of it out, cleaned it up. Here's a 1926 Chrysler door mechanism. It was rusted so bad it wouldn't even work. I put it in there overnight, and it's nearly taken everything. If I hit this with a wire brush, the only thing left on here is just loose rust. An old wrench of some sort. It was just super bad pitted. And I threw it in there, and it's taken nearly all of that off. An old drive line I had, this U-joint was just terrible. You can kind of see there where I had it in the solution. And the stuff is it's taken almost all of it off. Just a little bit of a wire brush in here. You don't even have to use a wire, just anything. You see, it's right down to the bare metal in just seconds. And before it was like this, it was just really huge pits and everything else in it. So anyway, that's a little side project I got going on. Here's an old alternator. Yeah, it was really crunched up. It wouldn't hardly turn. It doesn't seem to do too well on the aluminum. Now I just plastic brush this stuff, but it's taken all the old paint off of it. All of the rusty metal is gone, and it was just a few hours. So works pretty good. Got an old 331 Hemi 4-barrel cast iron manifold. I'm gonna throw it in this derusting solution and leave it in overnight and see what happens. Another little episode in the never-ending derusting. These are some more parts I pulled off yesterday. I've got a couple Model A window stanchions here. And fender brace. Even let me pull this stuff out of here and we'll see what it looks like. Here they are before I clean them up. This is just an old Hemi rod that had a water lock, and you can see how it's bent there, but this is sacrificial anode. It's chewing it up pretty good. I'm still not sure what that green stuff is in there. I'll show you another one in a minute, but right now I'll just clean these. After a little bit of brushing with just a parched brush and some water here, you can see that it's right down to the bare metal. Yeah, these are Model A stanchions, so that's what, 80 years old or something. Took 80 years to rust right off. This is a lower fender brace on a 62 Comet. It was solid rust. It's right down to the metal. And this was a battery box holder on the same car, and it had battery acid on it, so it was pretty chewed up, but you can see it's taking it right down to nothing. I'm still washing it in the solution that was in the tank. If I was to clean them up with clean water, they'd be a lot better. Here's a little different solution. Now, I don't know why this particular one is staying clean. Mostly maybe because I use small parts, but these are a couple hood hinges off the same car. They weren't really rusted too bad. Maybe that's why it's not foaming so much, but we'll pull them out and take a look at them. Here's the two hood brackets. Now, they weren't really that badly rusted, but still clean them up really nice. And it's also taken off any of that old loose paint that had rust under it. Now, this one didn't do us quite a good a job. I'm going to throw them in that green nasty solution and give them a few more hours and see if that makes any difference on this one. And years after a little drying out here in the sun, you can see that it's pretty much taken everything off. All you have to do now is hit it with a wire brush to take some of that loose dust off, and paint them or something to protect them. But electrolysis works really good for taking rust off. And the trouble is, you got a big bucket of dirty water you got to get rid of. So that's really the only drawback. And there's part of my derusting series. This is a batch that I think sodium carbonate baking or washing soda. It just got so saturated it wouldn't do anything. This is just baking soda here. I've got a couple front end parts and some springs in here. This is after letting it set overnight. I'm going to clean some of this rust off of here and we'll see what happened to these parts. I got the parts out and brushed them off in this one tank because it's mostly just soap, like I said. Took some of the scum out of this tank. This green color in here is actually the black paint. Here's part of the spring perch that was insulated with tar or something. So I'm just throwing it back in here to, you can see it's already foaming pretty good because the rust is reacting with the soda and the water and the electrolysis, so it's coming off. But the green is not typical on this, but I had a lot of old paint on them. I'll show you in a minute what happened to that. Here's the parts that just came out. This was a spring, and as you're familiar with springs, you can kind of get an idea what this whole coil spring was like. It was just pretty solid rust. This was a trailing arm. Now if you notice, this spring perch here had a lot of grease and stuff on it, plus it's insulated by this rubber bushing, so it didn't do a lot to it. It just didn't do much to it, but the arm itself got cleaned up, took all the paint and all the rust and everything. Also, this inner bolt here, if you notice, is still rusty, and the bolts are still rusty. That's simply because none of this was electrically connected. It was just this outside part here, and so the washers and stuff, this is what the whole thing looked like. But it's taken off 95%. Here's a shock tower. It was fairly rusty. The top wasn't too bad, but you notice it just completely took all the paint off of it. I think that's where a lot of my green in the water came from, was the shock tower. Also, this was painted as well under there. But that's after overnight. It cleaned those parts up real well. I'm going to stick it back in, hooked up to these this last piece here, and see if I can get it clean. I'll show you another little bit of that later. Now here's that spring, kind of dried off, cleaned up. I've got this bracket turned out really nice. I've got a backing plate here that I cleaned up, and a turn signal lens bracket. I'm just going to squirt this stuff with some anti-rust paint and let it dry and move on to the next thing.